Chapter 11. 61st crosses under the railroad tracks before it climbs the bluff into Ballard. Homeless guys sleep behind the blackberry bushes that grow along the tracks. Most of the time I just hear them rustling around back there, but sometimes they come out and ask for money or cigarettes. The guy who came out that morning had a skinny, wrinkled face, blue eyes, and long black hair. "You got a spare quarter, kid?" he said, his voice raspy. "I got nothing," I said to him. I tried to edge around him, but he stepped in front of me. "Have a heart, kid," he said. "A quarter, a dime, you gotta have something." "I told you," I snapped. "I got nothing." As I moved by him, he grabbed my sleeve. I wheeled around and pushed him away. His chest felt small and bony like a child's. He toppled in a heap onto the sidewalk. "All I want is a quarter," he called after me. "You didn't have to hit me." It wasn't until I reached the top of the hill that I looked back. The guy was still sitting on the sidewalk, looking up at me. He called out again, but his voice was so weak I could hardly hear him. I kept going. It's straight uphill from the marina to 32nd Avenue, but there the land levels. Walter's Cafe is on 32nd, right at the top of the hill. Kim Lawton, a friend of my mom's from before the divorce, works there. She's always after me to stop in and see her, but I don't, partly because I don't have much money, and partly because she reminds me of my mother. But the whole thing with the homeless bum made my hands shaky and my knees feel weak, like they were made of water. A cup of something hot didn't seem like the worst idea. Kim was behind the counter. The instant she saw me, her face broke into a big grin. "Good to see you, stranger," she said as I stepped inside. "And it's about time, too." I ordered a small hot chocolate and put 6 quarters down on the counter. She pushed the coins back to me. "Go sit down," she said. "I'll bring it to you." I found an empty table in the corner. I hadn't waited for more than a minute before Kim put a mug of hot chocolate on the table and settled into the chair across from me. "How are things going, Chance?" she said. "Okay." "What's okay mean?" "Okay means okay. Not good, not bad." She pursed her lips, and I could tell we were both thinking about my mom. Just then an old guy came in. Kim jumped up and returned to her spot behind the counter. "The regular?" she asked. The old guy nodded and soon the cafe filled with the sound of the espresso machine. My chocolate was too hot to drink quickly, so I put my hands around the mug and let the warmth in, taking a sip every now and then. I thought that sitting would steady my nerves. Instead, it made things worse. I kept seeing the homeless guy sprawled out on the sidewalk. I kept feeling his bony chest against my palms. He was the size of a child, and I'd pushed him hard. What if I'd hurt him badly? What if he was still down on the sidewalk? More customers came in. Kim looked over at me, shrugged, and I gave her a wave to show I understood. Eventually I finished my hot chocolate and headed for the door. "You leaving?" Kim called to me. She had a line of customers now. "I've got school," I said. "Come in Saturday when it's not so busy," she said. "I want to have a long talk with you." "I will," I said. I pushed the door open, but instead of going to school, I retraced my steps to the top of the hill and looked down the street to where the homeless guy had fallen. He wasn't there. I wanted to believe that meant everything was okay, but I couldn't. He might have crawled into the bushes. If he did, and he was hurt and alone, he could die there and nobody would find him for weeks. I walked slowly down to the bottom of the hill. When I reached the spot where he'd fallen, I had stepped off the sidewalk and pushed my way through the tangle of blackberry bushes. "Anybody in here?" I called out. There was no answer. "Is somebody in here?" Still no answer. I followed a hint of a trail for about 20 more feet, ducked under some vines, and found myself in a small clearing. Under a makeshift tent made of plastic bags were some cans of food, a pair of boots, an old coat, a sleeping bag, empty beer bottles, and a bunch of old magazines. Sitting on the ground next to that pile of junk were two guys. The guy I'd pushed and another guy who was older, skinnier, and had a long gray beard. They were both smoking cigarettes. "You okay?" I said, looking at the guy I'd pushed. He just stared at me. "You okay?" I repeated. He kept staring. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the quarters that Kim Lawton hadn't taken, and held them out to him. He stuck out his hand. There was an open sore on his palm, and his hand was filthy. I placed the coins into his hand, and he shut his fingers tightly around them. "I'm sorry," I said. "I didn't mean to hurt you." Then I turned and got out of there as fast as I could.